Alright, what's up guys? Today I wanted to discuss a little bit about the new Toyota Supra and kind of my thoughts and opinions and feelings about it. You know, I've owned a lot of Supras in my life, probably had more Supras registered to me than any other vehicle combined. I've owned many MK2s, many MK3s, and 4 MK4s. So I know a lot about them. They're amazing cars in some sense. Some generations not so much, but it was all, you know, all depends on your likes and dislikes. But this new Supra is just, it's got a lot of people, I would say, upset, up in arms. There's a lot of there's people who love it, there's people who hate it, there's people who think it shouldn't even be called a Supra, there's people who think that they're glad to have something that they can call a new Supra, but I don't know. I think for me, let's just say, you know, the MK4 Supra is kind of what put the Supra on the map for many people. A lot of people, you know, they seen them in Fast and the Furious, or like, you know, Texas 2K, which used to be called the Supra Nationals, where, I mean, the Supra was dominating in a lot of senses almost every car brand in the aftermarket. An aftermarket fixed up Supra was dominating a lot of cars. I mean, Vipers, Corvettes, a lot of these cars that people drove and beat on couldn't handle it. But it went along with Toyota and TRD's development. They used the best of the best at the time and produced a car that they thought could compete on a world level, and they succeeded. For instance, the 2JZ GTE head was designed and developed by Yamaha, one of the best head designers at the time. The transmission was developed by Getrag, a German company that was really good at what it did, and it shows. Those transmissions can hold 1,000, 1,200 horsepower today, 20-year-old transmissions. The differential was, there's a, you know, the big diff, the dual torsion diff developed by TRD, Toyota Racing Development, was very stout. You could take a 6-speed Toyota Supra, modify the engine, and everything else from the clutch back can handle immense amounts of power. I mean, for a car that came with 320-ish horsepower from the factory, for the rest of its driveline to handle 3 times that says a lot about the car. Even the engine block. A lot of the engine blocks in stock form can handle 1,500 horsepower before they start cracking. And then of course you get into a billet block or, you know, whatever else. But this new Supra, it's almost like, to me it's like Toyota is just using the Supra name to shuffle more shit out, or kind of like, in a way, to help BMW sell product. I mean, it's got pretty much everything's based on a BMW Z4. And I mean, a lot of purists or fanboys in that case are kind of disappointed. I mean, it would have been a great car if it was, let's say, called Toyota FT1 or Next Gen 86 or something. But to take, in essence, the flagship car of a Toyota and to collaborate with another company which, in my mind, never really made anything too great. I mean, sure, BMWs are awesome to a lot of people, but I've never seen a highly modified BMW engine being swapped and everything. Never seen you know, BMWs are kind of like Mercedes. They're notorious for needing lots of maintenance and not being too reliable. So when you try to merge that with a car that was so reliable, so moddable, accepted the mod so well, it's just disheartening for a lot of people. Not even to mention that they're not even offering the car with a manual gearbox. That's a total different argument there. But I mean, of course, they say, oh, depending on demand, they might offer a manual box. But let's say I own a Premier Edition 1993 Toyota Supra, 6-speed, twin turbo. What if I want to buy a Premier Edition MK4 Supra? Well, I'm kind of limited on the options I get. I'm limited on the gearbox. I have to get an automatic, which I'm driving a manual Corvette right now, and I bought a new Corvette because they offered a manual. It's just one of those things that me as a personal buyer bought. So what I'm saying is that it feels like with the, I would say in the early 2000s, or even, I don't know, in the early 90s or whatever, Toyota's always been that company that developed cars on their own. Everything about their cars were not, I would say, collaborated with another manufacturer. Until the BRZ / Scion / whatever you want to call it, Toyota was pretty much a company that built its own cars, built what it wanted, and sold great, reliable cars. But I feel like just the collaboration with BMW is surely a great thing, kind of like their collaboration with Subaru on the BRZ and the AE86. But in a sense, I mean, I follow the AE86 forums. I used to always think they're kind of cool, kind of Supra-ish. They kind of had a good little look to them. But, I mean, they've had a lot of issues. They've had I mean, they're going through a recall right now for valve springs. And I mean, I know everything says their issues, but going back to the BMW collaboration, I think it is an amazing thing. It cuts costs for companies. That's why they do it. A company can spend 50-50 developing an engine, and they get to put them in both their cars. They don't have to spend so much money developing one engine for one platform, and then once it's sold out, they have to either put that engine platform in other cars, kind of like they did with the Lexus IS300s and SC300s and, you know, what have you. But I feel like they shouldn't have called it a Supra. They could have called it the FT1. They could have called it anything else. The fucking Zora, for all I care. Of course, that's a Corvette name. But yeah, so I just think they put this name on the car so that they would have this following, and I mean, it's worked. They are getting tons of press, tons of people talking about it like I am here, and that's kind of what I think they wanted out of it. But I think in the end, it's going to hurt their reputation. Someone like me, who would have, let's just say this, if they would have made an MK4 Supra, and they would have literally made the MK4 body, put a new motor in it, put a new, I guess, new interior, you know, freshened up the design or freshened up the interior or whatever. I know there's plenty of people out there would have spent $50, $60, $70, even $100,000 for that car. If I could buy a brand new Toyota Supra today that looks exactly like an MK4, I would pay for it. No ifs, ands, or buts. I would be waiting in line to buy that car, and I would park it right next to my 93 MK4. But that's not what they did. And more images of the car that I see looks very just BMW-ish. Looks, I don't know, disappointing. It's got that, I don't know, just the hood, the front end, it's got this weird bubbly bulbous look. It's got a lot of material above the wheel arches, which once again is kind of BMW-ish. It looks like an old like Z8 almost. But I don't know. I think Toyota should have developed this car with Toyota like they did. I just think they should have called it something different. That's it. I mean, like, they could have called it the new BRZ or something. They could have called it the Toyota Z8 for all I care, or Z4. But I don't know. I really feel like they're just going to end up hurting their fan base, hurting the following for it, because besides the Scion Subaru collaboration with the AE86, there hasn't really been a Toyota in the last 20 years that's really been anything but a family car. I mean, you look at what look at what they've developed. There's not a single car that they've developed that's even been popular besides the BRZ/AE86. And I mean, most of the people are buying that car just to cut it up and make a drift car out of it, which isn't really bad for the company, but it's just, I don't know, it's not what it used to be. I feel like in the mid 90s, when, you know, Mazda had the RX-7, Acura had the NSX, Mitsubishi had the GT, you know, the GTO or the 3000 GT, whatever you want to call it. I feel like they were competing at a high level with each other. I mean, look at the R35. If you don't want to call that a GTR, don't. I mean, it looks hideous compared to the R34. I agree, but they made that a monster. It still is a very formidable car when it comes to the aftermarket and race scene. I mean, it really is. It's breaking records. In the last 6 months, it's broke a record. You know what I mean? But I don't feel that the direction they went with this Toyota Supra was at all in the direction of what a lot of Supra fans would like. And I mean, I might be biased. Please let me know if you think I'm biased. Please let me know if you disagree or agree. But I feel like they could have developed the car. They could have developed it exactly the way it is. Just left that Supra script off. That should have been reserved for something that was completely Toyota, completely something that could have, you know, catapulted Toyota back to where it was in the early 90s. There's videos of Ferraris racing Supras, and there's just, Supras were so dominant in every aspect. I mean, it had a low 7-minute Nürburgring time. I would hate to see what this car has Nürburgring time. I don't know. You guys just tell me what you guys feel like. Tell me what you guys think. I really don't like it. I mean, I'm gonna put some pictures in of like what they said it looked like and what it ended up being. Like, there's so many concept pictures of this car that looked gorgeous. I mean, of course, you got some people photoshopping some rims on it and kind of lowering that stance it has, because it's kind of up there on the pictures I seen. The wing, I seen a lot of pictures where it has the raised wing, and on the model, on the Premier model, or what they're actually releasing, doesn't even seem to have that. Unless they're not showing it, it's just this weird duckbill ass that's really gross, I feel like. I mean, even the rear end looks like a BMW. It looks like an extra sculpted BMW. It's just, I don't know. And then for when one of the American, I would say, directors of Toyota America to say that it has the most power any Toyota Supra has ever had is just foolish. I hope that car dynos at least the 320 horsepower it advertises, because Supras were underrated. They would advertise those cars at 300, and in Japan they said 285. In America it was like 325. But those cars often outperformed those numbers on a dyno, or in real world applications outperformed that number. It was a low mark, where I believe now they're claiming this 330 horsepower, which is not quite an advancement. That's 1 horsepower extra for every 2 years in development. Let that sink in for you real quick. I mean, a 1990s Corvette had like 350 horsepower, and the C7 has 480. So that's kind of what development goes by, and that's just the base model. We're not even getting into anything else, because there are 750 horsepower Corvettes from the factory. I feel like they should have put a little bit more thought into, if not the engine itself, the way they packaged it or the way they sold it. Because there's going to be, it's sad when people want to buy a car and immediately rip out the engine to put a 20-year-old 2JZ in it. That kind of tells you where Toyota's development was 20 years ago versus now. I mean, even me, if I buy, I would ask the dealer, is there an option I can buy this car without an engine? Can I get 10 grand off the price for an MK4 roller just so I can throw a 2JZ in it? And that is, to me, hilarious. It's hilarious that a company would recreate their flagship car and botch it up so badly. There's so many memes and so many threads and so many people talking about this car, and in the end I think it's going to be a big disappointment for Toyota. I think they're going to hype this car up extremely, and they're not going to sell very many of them. And in the end, I think they just did it to kind of help BMW and them make a collaboration together and sell engines and sell cars. Because I feel like if you look at the pictures of the interior versus, from the BMW interior versus the Toyota interior, there's no differences. They're pretty much identical. Besides the steering wheel, they are identical. And it's just like, it's like the I bet the frames, I bet if you just kind of like if you took an SC300 and ripped the skin off, it's the same as an MK4 Supra. I bet it's the same with the BMW, and that's sad. I'm sure that BMW frame or chassis is the exact same as this new Supra chassis. And it's just never what Toyota was famous for. It was never what Toyota was about. Toyota was about developing all of its own things. I used to be proud. There's like, let's take Chevy for example. There's a lot of other companies that make parts that are put on a Chevy, where in a 90s Toyota, no one else sub-designed it but them. They didn't use Mitsubishi parts. They didn't use Dodge parts or Chevy parts or Nissan parts on their cars. Everything was developed by Toyota or TRD, or Lexus is owned by Toyota. So all these collaborations now, I feel like it's just the company trying to save money. That's, they're not worried about producing the best of the best car, kind of like Volkswagen did with the Bugatti. They said they lost money on the development of that car because they wanted to produce something that was insane and a marvel of its time, and they have done so. I mean, these things sell for millions of dollars. Where Toyota is I feel like they're taking away from their own company, and it's going to reflect. And I mean, we'll watch this. After this video's aired and and gone through, and the development happens and production steps up, and they're on car lots and dealer floors and being test driven and driven, and then, you know, recalls happen and engines fail, or I'm not saying they will, but if they do, that's going to be a big thing for Toyota. It's going to be a big thing for people who really love the Supra, like me. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go to Toyota and I'm going to test drive one. I'm going to try and get an allocation for one, for the premier release version. But if I don't like it, I'm going to be honest. I'll either get rid of it or never buy it to begin with. It's sad because the Supra, I've owned many Supras, like I said, and I have an Alpine Silver 93 Toyota Supra twin turbo 6-speed that I will never sell. I barely like to drive it. I don't want anybody dinging it with their car. I don't want one of my windows getting broken. I don't want anything to happen to this car because of the love I have for it. And I mean, I remember being 13 years old dreaming of owning one. And you know, 4 MK4s later, I found the one I really enjoy, and I'll probably be buried in that car. That's the kind of love that people have for these cars. And a lot of this hatred and a lot of this talk going on right now about these cars is simply because of that love and that following for the car. I mean, you had, like, when Nissan developed their R34 or whenever they released it, that was its main rival, was a Supra. The Supra was always, it was either you were a Skyline fan or a Supra fan, and those cars would always go head to head. I mean, and sure, one was probably, the Skyline may have been better at cornering and acceleration as all-wheel drive, but in the end, the engine development of that 2JZ was far superior. I mean, there's aftermarket companies for RB engines replicating the oil pump that the Toyota had on the Supra because it just never failed. It was way over-engineered for the time and for the horsepower it was making. That being said, when this Supra is released, I don't even think it's going to be able to even dream of giving an R35 a challenge. The R35, that's one thing with Nissan. They may have made an ugly car, but God, did they make it fast? Did they make it powerful? Did they make it a lot of things that, you know, that a lot of people enjoyed, and that, you know, that in the end overcame the fact that it was not an inline 6 engine anymore, as a V6. The fact that it was very ugly in a lot of people's opinions, and it looked like a 300ZX, not really a 350Z, not really a Skyline. But the Supra, there's nothing, they say that they took heritage and lines from the fabled Supra or the flagship car, but I don't see it. I mean, I'm going to post pictures, side-by-side comparisons of this car to an MK4, and in all 4 angles. I mean, you guys let me know what you guys think, but I believe it's just going to be hideous, and that's just my opinion, man. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys comment and tell me what you think, but I really think they're